So that last episode, we left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger. And I apologize for that, but we didn't have much footage from where you'd see the episode end till the end of that day. So kind of wanted to go a little bit into it, what went on from our perspective so that you understand and hopefully can learn something yourself. So after we skied the Joffre Couloir, we were skiing down the glacier. We were about 3/4 of the way down to the bottom of the valley when I pulled up on a kind of random little knob and started looking back up at the mountain. Luckily, I had my GoPro on to capture it, but pretty far away, and all of a sudden I see something kind of moving up on Mount Joffre. And at first I thought it was a rock or maybe a bird. I couldn't really tell what was going on, and then I all of a sudden realized this was a human.
Dude, holy fuck. Someone just fell down Central.
No way. Are you kidding?
No, that's somebody right there.
And he was tumbling down the central couloir incredibly fast, going 100-foot gaps to hitting the snow, tomahawking, hitting rocks, and bouncing off a 40-foot cliff at the bottom, and then coming to a final resting place pretty much about 500-600 feet below the exit of the couloir. I thought at that moment I just witnessed someone die. There had been fatalities in that couloir in the past. But right there, we didn't know what to do. We just witnessed someone fall. We are very far away. So we tried to figure out what is going on.
So after Cody told me all this and I saw that, and I was like, we're pretty far away. And the best thing that we could do, I think, was to just fly the drone up and see if he's alive or not. Because he's like so far up. So we couldn't really see if he was standing up or lying down or anything. And we flew the drone up. And I could fly really close to him, and I took like a picture of him, and I could see him standing up. But his face was like really smashed up. I could see the difference in his face, and we were like, we're not sure if he's gonna be okay or not.
So had to make the decision at that point to figure out how to rescue this guy. From my standpoint, we had a few different options. Our first one was that we both hike up there and go try and carry him out. But that seemed like a pretty iffy option because we truly didn't know the extent of his injuries. If he had a broken back, we would have to have locked him down and stabilized him, and moving him many miles to the trailhead in that sort of manner would be almost unfeasible and would have taken probably the entire night. I've practiced those things in previous wilderness first responder courses, and it's amazing how hard it actually is. So I kind of ruled that option out. I also had a PLB, a Garmin InReach. I could have pressed the SOS button, but I figured we only had about an hour and a half of light left for the day before nightfall came and it was completely dark. And sometimes those things can be a little slow. I've read up a lot about PLBs and what the processes are, and I suggest you do the same. For my standpoint, I thought it would be more guaranteed to get to the nearest cell service and talk to people to initiate a rescue. I knew that we had time, very short period. Time was not on our side, and I knew that a heli would have to come in and pick this guy up right before dark. At this point, we kind of figured if he was spending the night out there, he probably wasn't going to survive. So that's when I left. I did not press an SOS button and just started booking it down to the bottom of the valley into the nearest cell service.
When Cody left, super fast down, I put my skins on and I started walking up. And actually the thought hit me that, I've seen people die in the mountains before and it's not fun. And I really hope it wasn't going to happen again. And one thing when you're going to rescue someone is that you shouldn't put yourself in very bad danger or risk. Because, imagine if something happens to me, then we're both not here. So that's very important. I took my skins and I literally run up. It took 45 minutes instead of an hour and a half or something like that.
So I'm trying to get up there as soon as possible, as soon as I can. It's a lot of snow. Cody went down to get a heli rescue, and I have a long way to go.
And I got up there and I saw him, and he didn't look good. His face was not very good. And I decided to just take him under a big rock as a safety precaution because above us was Xerox, and that can fall down on you, which is pretty bad. And I decided to give him nearly all of my clothes actually, and because he was super cold, and I decided to just hug him because it's very easy to get hypothermia when you're up there, and he was shaking so bad. And I was like, well, it's 50-50 if he's actually going to survive or not.
Once I got back to my car, I kind of raced down to where I knew there was cell service, and the first thing I did was I called Blackcomb Helicopters. I don't recommend you do that. If you call them in an emergency situation and it's a non-emergency, you might end up having to pay for that helicopter flight. So you might be out thousands of dollars. But I had a relationship with them. I knew it could take some time to mobilize a helicopter. So I called them, called a friend of mine there, and was like, hey, we need to get a helicopter quick. We've got an emergency scenario. From there, I called 911, which is actually what I'd really recommend for most people. I called 911 and I spent a lot of time on the phone with them. 911 isn't quite prepared for backcountry emergencies. They were trying to figure out the location, the injury. They didn't really know. In that time period, I was actually able to be on my phone and mark the exact GPS point of where we were. I knew from maps and studying maps where exactly that victim was. So I was able to translate a GPS point instead of having to tell them, oh, it's the north face of Mount Joffre, you come around the corner. Stuff can get pretty misunderstood essentially by people that don't necessarily know the mountains. Once I got finished with 911, I got patched to search and rescue. Pemberton Search and Rescue are the people that obviously know these mountains, they know how to travel with them, and got them mobilized. I talked about the injury, talked about how Bjarne wasn't prepared to spend the night and that this guy might die if he doesn't get out by that night. Essentially, I was trying to do everything I possibly could to get a helicopter and get rescuers there before nightfall. At that point, the fall happened around 4 o'clock. I made my first call at 4:28, and we had about 1 hour left of light.
And I waited and waited for the helicopter to come, and I knew that it's going to come soon, hopefully. An hour later, we could actually hear the sound of the helicopter, and so happy they came, and they picked him up, and, you know, he's lucky, and we're all lucky, and that he survived for sure.
So all in all, everyone was really lucky that day. When the victim came to the Pemberton heli base, there happened to be an air ambulance in the area. He got medevac to Vancouver, where he was stabilized and shown to be pretty miraculously uninjured in a catastrophic way. He definitely had some injuries and that were significant, but he was going to survive. Everything that happened that day was kind of a miracle. From the moment that if we were a minute late, we would have never seen him. If we were a minute earlier, we would have never seen the fall. To all the steps that we took. We actually got briefed by Pemberton Search and Rescue that the decisions we made that day were correct. We could have actually hit the SOS button on the PLB and it might have helped, but they also said just getting to human communication the fastest possible was kind of the best possible situation in that scenario. But what I will say is all this equipment and all these rescue, I can't tell you what to do, but you need to do the research yourself. I've spent so much time in the backcountry with medical teams, with guides, with Center Search and Rescue that I kind of understand the systems. And that's, I think, what ultimately made the right decision that day, why we were able to help save this guy's life. I would ultimately put the guy's life being saved by Pemberton Search and Rescue, Blackcomb Helicopters, and of course the hospitals. We were just lucky to be there that day. We were lucky to see it, and we were lucky we made the right decisions. But for you, if you're a backcountry user, not only should you get the equipment, you should understand it. Because as we were told by Search and Rescue, if any one of those things went wrong that night, that guy might not have survived.